Thank you everyone for joining us in today's webinar. The topic today is a presentation on AP invoice automation. And for today's agenda, we're going to go through a little bit of introductions, and then we'll go into what topic will be all about, and we'll have some questions with Anna, and a little bit of Q&A in the end. And throughout the presentation, it will be sprinkled in with poll questions. A quick intro to who I am. I'm Arnold Chong. I'm the Inside Sales Lead at Avanti Co. I'm joined here with a team from DUOP that will be presenting on AP invoice automation, and if it could help you if you're using on Dynamics AX or 365. So Team DUOP, please introduce yourself.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Jarmo Härä, and I'm the Sales Director at DUOP. First of all, I would like to thank Avanti Co for giving us the opportunity to have this webinar, and it's great to notice that there's so many attendees in this, and let's make this a good session for all of us.
Good, thanks Jarmo. My name is Anna Tojunen, and I am the CPO of DUOP. I address to the product vision, roadmap, and design. My background is both in IT and finance as a controller, and I used to work as a Dynamics finance consultant. I've been building DUOP from the start, and I've wanted to embed into DUOP all my experiences and best practices when I've worked with very smart people throughout the years. And some of you are online today. I can see many familiar names, so thanks for joining.
Thank you, Jarmo. Thank you, Anna. Before I get started, I want to tell you a little bit about who Avanti Co is as an organization, and then I will pass over to Jarmo. Before, we were known as AX Mentor, but we recently rebranded to Avanti Co. So if the name sounds familiar, you know why, and it's because we've actually been around for many years. We rebranded to align with Microsoft's new initiative to focus on Dynamics 365 and not just solely on AX, although we do support all versions of AX. Avanti Co was founded in 2006. We've been a Microsoft partner ever since. We have members of our team who are part of the Microsoft TAP program. We are heavily involved with the user group community on the 365 AX UG side, as well as the CRM UG side. Our headquarters is in San Diego with several offices. So we covered the following states: California, Arizona, Oregon, Washington, Nevada, Utah, Minnesota, Georgia, Texas, and Indiana. And we also have international locations in UK and Denmark, where our founders are from, and where AX originated. So we have experts who work with the platform since the very beginning. Our vertical expertise, it's focused on manufacturing, professional services, and public sector, but we do cover a wide breadth of other verticals. That includes retail or financial services. We are a full stack AX 365 partner, as well as help in ISV development. So we can help you with general help desk services, road mapping, full implementation life cycles, as well as managed support and post-live support services. If you have any questions throughout this webcast, please post them on the right-hand side, and I will read them off at the Q&A at the end. And with that, I will pass it back over to Jarmo.
Okay, thanks, Arnold. Let's now go to the actual world of AP automation, and let's start by bringing the current reality of the invoice approval process into our minds. Here's a picture which illustrates perhaps the reality in many of the companies in the US currently. And if the AP process starts at the branch office, it might take up to 5 days for the invoice to reach the headquarters. Then the invoice goes through several people and time-consuming phases before it finally is approved and put into business application and archived. So the whole invoice approval process can take days and days. And by the time everything is done, you've missed any chances of any dynamic discounts, for example. And too often, the payment is then already late. And let's face it, it's a tedious process, but things could be different. So if we look at the situation in this picture, so imagine a situation where you can receive invoices centrally, all in one place from multiple different sources with multiple different formats. And the invoices are automatically matched against their respective purchase orders and posted. The modern process does not involve unnecessary people, which means less work on boring routines and more time to focus on the exceptions. It amazes me that even today I see that two people can talk about invoice automation and mean completely different things. Some understand it's mostly about getting rid of paper through scanning and OCR. Some add workflow to the mix, and some only talk about the workflow. What is important is to understand that most solutions on the market only cover part of the process, but you should not settle for the partial solution. When we talk about invoice automation, we mean automation across the entire process, including integration with the ERP system. This enables matching the invoices with purchase orders, and this kind of automation can be called world-class. What is important is to understand that most solutions on the market only cover part of the process, but you should not settle for the partial solution. So when we talk about invoice automation, we mean automation across the entire process, including integration with the ERP. If we look at the invoice management of today, what can we see? We're using systems that are rarely integrated and or compatible with each other. There are plenty of time-consuming tasks and tedious, labor-intensive manual processes. Due to a lot of manual input work and the number of people involved, the processes are extremely prone to errors. And we all know for a fact that invoice management is just outright boring. To sum up, we use systems and processes which lack efficiency, quality, and have bad user experience. I would like to draw your attention to one strange thing. Today's world, we as consumers are used to incredible user interfaces and ease of use in all apps and web services we use. We are very critical of the user experience, and there's certain standard we expect every piece of software to deliver. But in the corporate world, we settle for less, a lot less. We use complicated and downright ugly software that just take the joy out of our work days. And the question is why? We need common understanding of what is acceptable of software we use daily. It's not just about usability and the beauty of the software, but it's also efficiency and the return we get out of our investment into the software. Okay, let's look a little bit what companies that are performing well in the benchmark studies have in common. What are they doing right? Obviously, they've gotten rid of paper. In addition to that, they're automating through matching. What does this mean? Well, you know all what purchase orders are and why they're made. The actual decision to buy, that needs an approval. When the PO is done and approved, no one should touch it anymore. Ideally, the process is touchless. There is also a lot of contracts and recurring invoices, such as utility bills. Time shouldn't be wasted in handling these when automating the process can be made so easy these days. As we all know, PO matching is the basis for making the process automated. And doing this also provides good prediction about the future cost and cash flow. The best performers also allow their personnel to approve invoices with a workflow tool across the entire organization. They know the efficiency of their process, meaning they basically know the cost of handling an invoice on average. With a paper-based process, this cost is around $10 per invoice, but with automation, you can get down to $5 or even less. And lastly, the best performers look beyond AP function, integrating procurement with accounts payable with the help of ERP integration. To conclude my part, I'd like to leave you all with this image of an ideal world. In an ideal world, there are no more late payments, and companies can enjoy the benefits of dynamic discounting to the fullest. There are no more delays in reviewing and approving invoices, and no complaints about clunky corporate software. In an ideal world, a motivated AP team is supporting the business to excel. People cannot wait to review and approve invoices, and the AP team can focus on exceptions rather than repetitive, tedious tasks. And the truth is, the ideal world is in fact within our reach. And with this, I would like to hand over to Arnold and Anna for some discussion. Thank you all, and back to you.
All right. So I have a few questions for you, Anna. You emphasize that DoUp is seamlessly integrated with Dynamics. What do you see are the benefits of this?
Well, I have two perspectives on this. So the accounts payable point of view and the CFO's point of view. For both of those parties, the seamless integration means that the data in ERP system is utilized real time. This means that the process should not suffer from technical problems caused by interfaces, which is pretty usual. And D365 is a cloud solution that updates all the time. So we take the responsibility that we talk seamlessly with your ERP system, and you shouldn't have to worry about the integration part with every update. For the AP people, the seamless integration means less manual work, less errors, less time used in correcting those errors, and better efficiency. And due to automation, the focus is shifted from the boring manual work to a much more rewarding sense-making expert work. From the CFO's perspective, the seamless integration with Dynamics means that the familiar business logic stays the same within the AP solution too. So the process is transparent and you stay in control every step of the way. And finally, well, seamless integration means that the software works right out of the box, which leads to both cost and time savings.
Yeah, I agree with you here. Seamless integration definitely leads to enhanced user experience. Let's talk about user experience. What does that mean to you?
So at first, it doesn't mean about slick colors, and it doesn't mean how a piece of software looks. Great user experience means that the software is quick to adopt and intuitive. And intuitiveness is something that I want to also show in my demo just in a few minutes. And like Jarmo just talked about, the consumer apps are great compared to the business apps. I guess the consumer apps wouldn't survive if they wouldn't be that great. So there probably is not so great ones also out there. But with the corporate softwares, we shouldn't we should not take that for granted. We should want more from the corporate softwares also. And the user experience ultimately means quick return on investment, which is something that we value in the business world.
Thanks for your insight, Anna.
No problem. I think you will have now a poll question while I get started with soon with my demo.
Okay. And yes, and I've just launched it. The first question is, which of the following do you consider as the current challenges in invoice management in your organization? I'll leave this question up for 30 seconds. So as you guys are responding. All right, I'm going to close it now. And wow, it looks like 77% picked extensive manual input work, and we have a few everywhere else. Annoyed personnel, lack of transparency, 8%, late payments, 4%, expensive processes, 4%.
Perfect. Can you just confirm when you can see my screen? I'm sharing a process picture of D365 versus DoApp.
You're showing up great, Anna.
Perfect. Good. So before I go to the actual demo, I'll just go one more slide more. So only this process picture quickly. So DoApp is an accounts payable software designed to integrate with AX and D365 as a turnkey solution. That means that we use all the master data and setups directly from Dynamics. We do not want to have anything maintained in two places, and we want Dynamics to be the master file. How we integrate is that we deliver our integration package to be installed to your Dynamics, and it includes the services we need for DoApp. Some of the data we update daily, some we get as pushed information when there is changes in Dynamics, and most we read live when needed. A good example of this is, for example, the account structures and purchase order product receipt information, and those are really important to keep up to date all the time. We are also connected to your Azure AD, so that the user authentication is the same as in Dynamics. When you're logged into Dynamics, you're logged in by single sign-on to DoApp also. So the same credentials work also there, and to the mobile app also. Good. Process with DoApp starts with invoice receiving. And the first keyword I want to emphasize here is that with your DoApp process, the AP process is centralized from the get-to-go. Even if your finance departments, the people, the approvers, even if those are decentralized, your AP process shouldn't need to be. So no matter what your invoice type is, which company the invoice belongs to, which format the invoices are sent to you, you will collect the same. You will collect those invoices through the same pipeline and to the same place. And this is the benefit of a cloud solution, so you cannot restrict yourself to a time and a place like you are in a paper-based process. For the non-PO invoices, you can have the Dynamics account structure-based coding and the approval workflow. For the PO invoices, you are able to have the PO matching, and this is automated when you have a match within the tolerances you defined, or when there is a discrepancy, the invoice can be automatically routed to the original requester or the purchaser for matching and approving. When invoices have been approved in DoApp side, we transfer them again, either automatically or by your finance people to the Dynamics side. And then the invoices are paid through the standard Dynamics functionalities. Okay. Now I'm moving on to the demo, so I'll get rid of the slides here and I'll open DoApp. So this is a web page that I have, and I will show you today a few pointers from the key things I want to emphasize. So based on the centralized and streamlined process, and also the intuitive look and feel of DoApp. For a more deep dive demo that is customized for your process and invoice types, please feel free to contact us through our web pages or directly by mail. So we are really happy to talk with you on a more detailed level. So I'll start with the desktop DoApp and the AP process phase. So this is the DoApp invoice handling view. And I talked about the centralized view already before. So here it is in action. All the invoices that we have might have received from multiple channels through PDF, through OCRing, through scanning service or e-invoices will lead to the same place. And it doesn't matter which company it belongs to, you're able to handle all those invoices from the same view. You can restrict the access to the invoices based on user rights, based on the company rights. And this means that you can have the whole group company centralized in a way that you're able to handle all the invoices through the kind of the same streamlined process, even though you would have some company-based differences, company-based workflows, and other company-based setups. Basically, all the companies that you have in D365 are available to the same DoApp application. Good. I'll start by handling the first invoice. So when I open the DoApp, as I'm now doing the accounts payable process, I will have all the invoices that are waiting for accounts payable to handle. So it can be a joint pool for the accounts payable people, or they can be invoices that are just waiting for me to be handled. I always have at least one invoice in the active invoice section, and then I have next invoices that are waiting in line in the queue. I also have the previous invoices section, which is more of an informational part, and I'll return to that a bit later. Okay, so starting about the intuitivity that I wanted to talk about. I already see that I have some warnings here. I have some errors coming up. And I'll start with this first invoice that I have to handle. I can see that this is a non-PO invoice, and I can check first what kind of warnings I'm getting. The main account is missing from the coding line. So based on the business rules that we have set up, we have a warning for the AP phase if they haven't input the main account at this point. So I'll start by correcting that. I'll make a search, I'll pick the main account I want to use. And what happens now is that we connected to Dynamics and we read the account structure from Dynamics Live. What I got was the account structure that I should use with this account. And I already got one dimension pre-filled, which was defaulted from the vendor. I can continue by selecting the dimensions. It will filter the list based on the dimensions that I can pick based on the account structure. But what I will do now, I will deliberately do a mistake. So you again can see the intuitiveness of the system. So I first pick another cost center and then I pick something else so that you can see that I did a deliberate error and I should make a correction. So like that way, I'm able to pick a dimension that I can use. If you are using the tax groups and item tax groups in Dynamics, we also have that set up here. And we are not having that as a duplicate. We use that again live from Dynamics. So if I make selections that I pick tax groups and item tax groups, I will have Dynamics doing the calculation of the tax amount for me. This way, we are always on the same, we always do the calculation the same way as Dynamic does, and we don't have any differences there. And one thing also, you wouldn't want to upkeep that tax information, the tax calculations in several places. Good. Okay, I did now a manual coding line. You can do coding lines for ledger and project, and very soon you're also able to do those for fixed assets, which is a dynamic functionality that you can do directly. Also, other kind of codings than just ledger. But I mentioned the previous invoices section before. So what we have here is an automated function that whenever I'm handling one active invoice, I also have the previous invoices handy, available for the same vendor. So I'm able to actually check how was this invoice handled on the previous time. So I'll delete now the coding line I already did, because I want to do that in a more simpler way. When I deleted the line, you could see that again the warning warning became active that I should have coding lines in place. So I'm now clicking the previous invoices, so I'm able to see what the coding was, and I'll click on another. Still, okay, this looks like a good one. I can see what the workflow was the last time. I can see the invoice picture, but especially I can see the coding, I can copy the coding, and I can paste it to my current invoice here. So a pretty fast way to get the codings copied from a previous invoice. Good. About the intuitivity a bit more. For example, the workflows. This is something that, as a roadmap feature, we are adding the position hierarchy also to DoApp, so that we're able to use that from Dynamics. But also, we have the possibility to modify the workflows real time. So if you give the rights, for example, to AP to do modifications to your workflow, you can easily do that. So if I see something that I want to change, I'm able to click that and get the selection window open. For example, for this invoice, I want to actually send this to 2 different people. So I want to split the task. So I want this invoice also to go to Benjamin. So when I click the part that I want to change, I immediately get that selection from there. And if there is something that I'm not allowed to do, for example, removing this approver task, and here you can see that we have that information, and you easily understand why you can't do a function, and you're able to find the correct information in the correct places. Good. I am now ready with this invoice. I have the coding lines in place. This was a non-PO invoice. I have the workflow in place. If I want to, I can also look at the very descriptive history log that I have for the invoice. So as I've been playing with this invoice today for a while, I do have, of all the changes that I have done to this invoice, I have a very, very good informational log. And now when I want to send this invoice to the workflow, I'll just click on the approve button, and that invoice will move to my previous invoices section, and I will get the next invoice from the active invoice section to be handled next. Excuse me. Okay, so this was the invoice that I already mentioned that has some kind of error in it. And the error it is highlighting is the invoice number. So I already know that highlighting the invoice number actually means that there might be a duplicate invoice. So it is able to find invoice with the same number to the same vendor based on your Dynamics setup. So if in your Dynamics accounts payable parameters, you have the restriction that you can't have, for example, within the fiscal year, the same invoice for the same vendor, then this will highlight. Now, if I click on enter when I'm in that invoice number field, what happened is it applied to this quick filter for me. So it's showing me all the invoices that there is with this same invoice number. And this means that I can really quickly pull that information that, okay, yes, this actually is a duplicate invoice. So by comparing those invoices, I know now that I do have a duplicate invoice, and if I want, I can archive this invoice that I had as a duplicate. Good. Moving on, I want to next handle a purchase order invoice. So I will move into my next invoices. I can see that there is a PO invoice I want to handle, and I'm able to quick select that to my active invoices section. So the next invoice section is just suggestion from the software of those invoices that are most urgent. But of course, you can handle which invoice you want. Good. Okay, so this is a PO invoice, and the invoice type here is now as a PO. And I'll just quickly show that there is, by the way, a lot of other header fields also that could be visible, but I have hidden those just to make it more clear. So with a PO invoice, the handling section is very different. So we're not doing the ledger codings. We are actually using the PO and the product receipt information from Dynamics to do the matching. And for this invoice, I already have the correct PO number that we were able to pick from that purchase order. But I do have 3 different product receipts, so 3 different deliveries related to that PO. If I would want, I can also come here and make changes to the purchase order. I can pick and search from the list. And if I pick another PO, it will show me also the product receipts related. And if I only know the product receipt number, I can also do it vice versa. So I click on the product receipt number and it will pick for me that PO that it's relating to. Good. But for this invoice, the 101 was correct, and it has 3 product receipts that are related. Our validation is saying that there is a big difference with the invoice and the product receipts. So our invoice total is this much, but the total of the match lines is much more. Now, I could start doing the changes directly to the matching lines. So if I now need to make corrections of either it's a price difference or a quantity difference, or just removing some lines fully, I could do that. If the discrepancy was because of a miscellaneous charges, I could add a miscellaneous charge here. That is the same functionality that there is in Dynamics, but it's basically more easy to add from here. And from here, we are automatically dividing those miscellaneous charges or allocating those miscellaneous charges to the line level, so you wouldn't forget to do the allocation. But also, if I don't need to do a line level changes, I can also do the selection based on the product receipt. So I know that this invoice only relates to this one product receipt. So by selecting that, it will filter the available items, and then my invoice would match. We have a restriction here that you cannot allocate the same quantities, the same line, well, the same line, yes, but the same pieces, the same quantity to two invoices in the same time. So we have a functionality that if I'm trying to match the same lines to the same to 2 different invoices, I'm able to see that information, that which other invoice there is actually using this. And by this, we are preventing those very common problems that you wouldn't be able to handle multiple partial deliveries on one PO on the same time. So with this functionality, they wouldn't collide in the posting phase. Good. For the POs, we do have the possibility to retrieve from the purchase order the requester or the orderer, which you can automatically use in the workflow. So our kind of best practice for this is so that you would have either both of those or just one of those dynamically in the workflow. And if there has been, for example, price changes or miscellaneous charges added, then it will be routed to those persons or person after the AP phase. But if there hasn't been, if the only functions, for example, that the API has done or even automatically have been handled, that there has been selection of the PO, maybe product receipt, but nothing else, then you're able to automate and have the benefits of that three-way matching. Good. At this point, I think I want to move to the mobile demo. I want to show you our mobile app. And can you, Jarmo and Arnold, have the third poll question meanwhile as I set up my my mobile?
Sure, this is the second poll question. During which period of time is your organization planning to migrate to D365? I'll leave this up for about a minute. Okay, I'm closing the polls. And we have 44% who plan on moving in 2 to 3 years, 17% in 1 to 2 years, 17% in 6 months to a year, 11% 0 to 6 months, and 11% of you guys are going to move more than 3 years from now.
Good. Thank you for those answers. I hope you can see now my screen again with the mobile app.
Yes, we do.
Perfect. Thank you. So here is the mobile app. I'm showing my actual phone, and the mobile app is available for all the three major operating systems currently. So Android, Windows, and iOS. And like I mentioned before, the same authentication works here. So Azure AD credentials are used. And mobile is meant for especially for the approvers that are on the go. We have a simple front view where the invoices are organized like a stack of cards. And I have the essential information on hand, and I can do the approving from this front view also. For example, here, I think, yeah, I trust Eva. She always does everything correctly. And I do know that we already talked about this invoice. And the sum is below 1,000 like we talked about, so I can do that approving directly from this view. But very often, usually, you would want to also dig deeper and look at all the information that there is related to that invoice. So when I click that card, I'm able to see all the information. I can see the invoice picture. I can see all the attachments that there might be. I can see the workflow. I can make changes to the workflow. Oops. Now I had crash, which I of course don't want to have. Just a second, I'll get back. Always there has to be a demo effect sometimes. Just a quick relaunch. And there we are. I just had to hide my password. Good. So I will get back to this invoice I was already handling. And I was looking at the workflow, so I can make changes to the workflow. I can see comments. I can add comments to the invoice. And of course, coding lines, we can do those. We can do those for project coding lines. We can do the ledger coding lines. I can change the existing coding lines And if it's a PO invoice, I can also view those PO related lines that there is. So if I want to approve that PO after changes that has been made to the matching, I can do that. And also in the mobile, we have the previous invoices function. It gives the approvers the necessary information so that they can approve the invoices within the mobile app. So when I am able to check that what was the price, what was the cost center, or what was the workflow the last time, I usually then have enough information to approve the invoice without having to dig in through the old emails or folders or wherever the contracts related to this may lie. Also, in the mobile, I'm able to add a delegate for my vacation time. So it's really easy and fast to add it, even though you have already left for your vacation. So you wouldn't get any invoices during that period. Good. That was basically what I had from the demo part. I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope that you want to see more in a customized demo for your invoice types and process. Good. Now we can move forward to the Q&A, I think.
We still have one more poll question.
Oh, perfect.
Let me just launch that. So are you planning to modernize your AP solution? I'll leave this up for a minute. All right, and it's now closed. 47% said maybe later, 20% said yes in the next 12 months, and 33% of you said you will in the next 6 months. 0% of you guys said no and said that it's already in place. Thank you for your answers. And now we will move into the Q&A. If you have any questions, just post it into the box on the bottom. So the first question I have is, what is the basis for upcharging?
Okay, Arnold, I think that's a question to me. And the do-up pricing is transaction based. So the monthly payments, the monthly fees are based on the number of invoices handled in do-up. So there's no license fees involved. It's only transaction based.
Thank you, Jarmo. I have another question. How do you integrate with the setup information from AX, which would be HR info, employees, approval limits, report to info, for approval routing rules on workflows. Also set up information related to account structure validations for coding, financial dimension updates, changes, legal entity, and other organizational info updates.
So that is my question, and I'll start with the easy one, the account structure and companies and everything related to that. So we read that information fully. So when we have an invoice and we set first the legal entity to that invoice, of course we try to automatically recognize from the OCR data, for example, which legal entity that invoice goes to. When we have that set up, after that, we only see the vendor table for that company. And based on the vendor that we select, we get most of we get kind of half of the information for the invoice from the invoice or OCR data from the invoice, and then we fill also the vendor information from Dynamics. So you would get, for example, payment terms and cash discounts and method of payments and everything like that. Then the account structure follows fully that company's, that legal entity's account structure. So we have that connection package that I was talking about in Dynamics, which gives us the information that for this company that this invoice belongs to, what accounts am I allowed to use? And when I click that account, or when I select that account on the invoice, it retrieves for me the account structure fully that is related to that account. Like I showed, that it's giving me only the dimensions that I'm allowed to use. For the other part of the question was the HR setup. So that is a roadmap function that we're doing this fall. Of course, we have already been designing that. Currently, we do it so that we do get already all the users, all the approver information for the users from Dynamics. So if you have those people set up in your Dynamics, we can use that. If you have linked those users to an employee ID, we're able to also retrieve that information that, hey, this person is used, is the purchaser or orderer or requester for this purchase order, so we can use that for the workflows. But the position hierarchy is something that we are doing this fall, and after that we should be able to get the signing limits and the relations between the hierarchy between people also from Dynamics. But that is still underway. But currently we are doing it so that we set that information, the approving rights, we set those to do up, and after that they're usable in the workflows.
Thanks, Anna. And as a follow-up to that, another question is the account structure integration batch-based, or is it synchronous?
It's live. It's live. It has to be live. I think it's really important that if you add dimensions now, you want to see them directly into that.
Great.
And I think there is a kind of big risk if it wouldn't be alive, because you would do the coding for the invoices, and then when the account structure changes, then you wouldn't be sure if that is up to date, and you would only see those at a later stage. So I think that is one of the key things why we want to keep that as a real-time interface.
Okay, and then moving on to the next question. Can we use project number in project module to set up workflows? For example, the user wants to send the invoice to project manager to review before a controller or CFO sees it.
That is something that we are also doing probably with the position hierarchy. So it is in our roadmap, and because we already have the project coding there. So when you want to code the invoice to a project directly, you're able to do that. So by just selecting the account type on the coding line, we're able to retrieve all that information from the project already. We actually do have already that information. We're reading that information, that who is the project owner, who is the. I think there is a couple of fields where you can set up the project ownership, and we are transforming that to our workflow in a next phase, hopefully this fall.
Great. Another user asked, can you explain how the invoices get into the system and how it knows what fields to pick up, as well as how does it handle various invoice formats?
Good. Based on what your your channels are, there is multiple different options. So we can set up a scanning as a service for you, which means that we would do the OCRing for those PDF and paper invoices, and we have standard interfaces for those scanned items, and we agree with you just what data we are picking from the invoices. If you have already an existing scanning software, so you have already made the investment, we would just make kind of during the setup phase, we would check if we already have that format in place, what your scanning software uses. For example, we've done many COFAX interfaces. So if that's already in place, we're able to just do your customer specific modifications and then you're good to go. E-invoicing is one of my favorite topics, and we do have a lot of already made e-invoice formats, which are the most used in the world, that we are kind of already set up for. And also in those e-invoice formats, you usually have the typical semantic model where we read the correct data, which is then mapped to the correct fields in DUA. Anytime you need to just have a PDF in without doing any OCRing or anything, you're able to do that. So if you want a quick path and just fill the information yourself, you're also able to do that.
Thank you. And another user asks, will this be compatible with an on-premise version of D365?
We have actually, we do have an on-prem client that hasn't gone to production yet, and we have already made sure that we are compatible with the on-prem.
Okay, and what type of ROI can we expect to receive after automating with DUAP, and how long will it take?
So, sorry, I didn't hear the beginning.
What type of ROI can we expect to receive after automating with DUAP, and how long will that take?
Oh, I would just, to get exact figures, I would need to know your system currently. But if we assume that it would be a normal situation that there is different kind of formats, different kind of places where you receive invoices, you would get the ROI from the streamlining and centralizing the process. So you will have all the invoices in one place. You wouldn't lose those invoices. You can have anyone with the correct user credential, user rights to see the invoices, to see where they're going. And one thing I wasn't able to show today, or I didn't show today, which we can take a look at in a private demo, is the Power BI reports that we have, where you're able to see the full process of all the invoices in different phases, with where they lie on different approvers, how long they have been on those approvers tables, and to get the full visibility for your process. And I think the kind of best functions is that you want to have those invoices digitalized. You will be in the future able to see the invoice pictures directly from your Dynamics. We do have a link in Dynamics in the transaction, so you're able to open that invoice picture from DUAP, so that you wouldn't have to look for those invoice pictures anymore, wherever they might be.
Okay. And do you have any connection with American Express to handle time and expenses for corporate cards?
Well, not currently. We are again with kind of time and expense side. We're thinking that maybe they should go to the travel of Dynamics, but I don't see that as a problem, depending on what kind of integration we're talking about. Because we do have a lot of integrations that we have done before.
Okay, and another user asks, we are moving from AX 2012 to D365 in Q1 2019. Do you recommend automating now or waiting until next year? And what makes more sense?
Both are okay, because we do work with AX 2012 also. So basically the transformation process from DUAP point of view is really easy, because you can already basically set this up with your AX 2012. And then when you move on to Dynamics, you could just basically, if the base data is the same, if vendors are the same, you're able to just kind of change the dynamics on the background. But if there is a lot of changes in the ERP side, in the base data of ERP, then you can just have a kind of a new copy of DoApp, and the people would already know how to use it. So there wouldn't be any changes in the DoApp side.
Okay. Another user asks, we have offices in the US and also in Europe and APAC. Can DoApp handle this?
Yes, it can, and it's really good for those cases. Like I was talking about the centralized part. So, for example, in Europe, there is a lot of countries that do most of the invoices already as e-invoices. So for the European countries, we have, because we're originally from Europe, we do have the experience of setting up the invoices for those companies. And then you can have, in the US, you can have scanning as a service and different kind of invoice paths. And as you have, for example, the tax setups in Dynamics, and we follow that setup. So if you have a European company that uses VATs, we have that set up already through Dynamics, so DoApp doesn't need any special setups related to that. All the company-specific rules and setups we already read from Dynamics.
Okay, we have one final question. Do you offer an AX 2009 version?
Unfortunately, we don't have a 2009 version. So 2012 forward we do have, but I'm sorry for 2009 users.
All right. Okay, so we're now out of time. Thank you everyone for all the questions and for joining us today. We hope this presentation was helpful in giving you another look into modernizing your AP processes. Also would like to thank the DoApp team for presenting. We look forward to seeing everyone on the next webinar, and have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.